noticed that when this country is at its weakest, Barack Obama, the former president, seems to appear out of nowhere, jetting in from Martha's Vineyard to Hawaii, to make the country even weaker and even more divided? This week, Obama appeared on television to tell us that anyone who complains when their children are taught in school that some races are better than others, anyone who complains about that is the bigot. What is going on here exactly? There's a hostility at the bottom, obviously, of Barack Obama. That's interesting. Glenn Beck is one of the very few people who saw it early, from the very beginning. He's the host now of the Glenn Beck radio program. We're honored to have him on tonight. Glenn, thanks so much for joining us. So I thought of you earlier this week because you had a very clear picture of who Obama was underneath. You felt the hostility in him. Mm-hmm. You said it. Mm-hmm. People became completely hysterical. But I thought that was a deep insight that a lot of us missed.
Right. Back then, Tucker, you couldn't call a president racist. Back then that was crazy. Now that we've gone through the Trump era, I guess it's okay. Here's the thing. I apologized for saying that about 2 years later because it was unartful. I was thinking out loud. And I remember I was on Fox and Friends, and I said, I think the president is a racist. No, that's not quite right. I think he just has a problem with the white culture. Well, holy cow, what do you mean by white culture? I don't know, Marxist. Tell me now what you mean by white culture. I was not versed on critical race theory. I wasn't versed in the language of Marxists. Now, Barack Obama, I am. I take my apology back. I was exactly right. And I even stated it right. You are a racist if you believe in critical race theory. If you think that what Dr. Martin Luther King said, that he envisions a country that is seeing people for the content of their character, not their color, if you think that's wrong, then yes, you are a racist. If you believe that critical race theory, which teaches children that white is an incurable kind of disease, that you will never be able to not be racist, that somehow or another you have to be punished for the sins of the past. I know that goes to your critical race theory, Barack Obama, but I don't believe in that. I'm sorry, I don't believe in that, and I also don't believe in collective salvation, which you do. By the way, you rejected Jeremiah Wright. How you feeling about the new senator from Georgia? How do you feel about him? I wonder. I'll bet you love him, but I bet you don't have the courage to say it.
That is such a good point. You felt that there's a hostility, there's an anger there, a meanness underneath Obama.
Oh, yeah.
I watched him really closely, a hatred. And I could always kind of feel it. It's very obvious now. I'm sure that you saying this out loud will, bring another tidal wave of rage, but it's because you're telling the truth.
Yeah, look, I'm tired of towing the line. I'm tired of especially the Marxist. I was called a racist for calling him a Marxist. He is a Marxist. If you believe in critical race theory, there's no science behind it. It is a Marxist theory meant to divide people and destroy a country. Well, what are we doing? His wife even said, Barack knows we're going to have to change our language, the way we talk to each other. We're going to have to change our traditions. Well, that's exactly what we're doing. And he said this week that Joe Biden is just finishing the job he started. Well, that job is the fundamental transformation of America. And Barack thinks that it's all about the economy, and they're thinking about losing their position. Losing my position? I don't care. I want my children to have freedom. I want my children to be able to make a choice on what they do, how they live, where they live. I will not be silenced by a bunch of Marxists. And Barack Obama, you don't have the courage. You have too much Hillary Clinton in you. That's why people didn't like you the second term, because Hillary Clinton, she just put you down a chute.
Glenn Beck, thank you for that. It's great to see you tonight. Well, for decades, only crackpots and crazy people believed in UFOs. That's what I thought anyway. And then in recent years, it turns out that governments have been taking them seriously all along. Very seriously. Nick Pope is a journalist who has spent years researching UFOs for the British government. He says that UFOs aren't just real, they also frequently come close to crashing into commercial airliners, among other things. Nick Pope joins us tonight. Nick, thank you very much for coming on. So it's really not a question of, do governments believe UFOs are real? Yes, they do. The United States government does. The British government does. The question is, do they have any idea what they are, where they're from?
No, we don't. We keep an open mind on it. We don't rule anything off, take nothing off the table with this. Our point really is that whatever these things turn out to be, there is a serious defense, national security, and air safety issue here.
Yes. Well, so that's kind of the nub of it, and that's where my interest comes from. So why aren't governments encouraging the population to, as they say about terrorism, if you see something, say something, report sightings to the government so we can make sense of this potential threat?
Well, they should be, and that's what we certainly did at the Ministry of Defense for many years. We took it very seriously. Our own pilots were seeing these things. We were having radar operators track them. And we knew, again, through intelligence and through open source material, we knew that the Russians and the Chinese and others were working on this too. The problem was that just the pop culture baggage from the term UFO, flying saucer, little green men, people don't take it seriously. But they should.
So we've ruled out, I think, that these are aircraft, experimental aircraft, or technically advanced aircraft from other countries. Is that true?
Well, no, we keep an open mind, as I say, and some of these things probably are Russian or Chinese, whoever it is, but that's the point. We must find out if there's something in our airspace we need to know. For years, governments said they didn't do this. They did. I did it for the British government. I can only talk about this now because my old employers are gradually declassifying and releasing information about my old job. We now know, of course, the Pentagon had a program too. I think it will take congressional hearings to get to the bottom of all this, not just in the United States, but all around the world. And I'd like to see those congressional hearings.
Commercial pilots have very often reported sighting objects in the air that seem to defy the laws of physics. To what extent are these objects a threat to commercial aviation, potentially?
Well, certainly the British Ministry of Defence and our Civil Aviation Authority, which is the UK equivalent of your FAA, have dozens of cases in our files about near misses, some of which where pilots have had to take evasive action. And again, it comes back to the point, I don't care in one sense what these things are, but when there is this flight safety concern, when we have these near misses, we sure as heck should be doing more to find out.
That's for sure. Nick Pope, really one of the most credible experts on this subject. I hope you will come back on our show. I appreciate it. Good to see you.
Well, the U.S. forecasts a scorching hot summer this year around the globe. Russia to experience heat not seen in more than a century. Over in the U.S., there could be more wildfires in California. Han Sang-woo has the details.
California's Death Valley hit a whopping 54 degrees Celsius on Wednesday.
This is early to have this much of a heat wave. It's happened before, but it's not that common.
NBC reports roughly 200 million Americans are forecast to see temperatures 32 degrees and above this week. Nevada and Arizona, where excessive heat warnings are in place, could reach 51 and 53 degrees each. The rest of California, even cities along the coast, are getting overheated, and the state's worried it may lead to more wildfires and electrical grid failures.
It's scorching. Thank God for the little bit of AC we get from the ocean. If it wasn't for that, man, it would be terrible. But it's really bad, and we got to find ways of getting out the house,
The situation's complicated by severe droughts, a problem 3/4 of the American West is experiencing, according to the U.S. Drought Monitor. It's not much different across the globe in Russia. Wildfires are being reported in Siberia, And in May, Moscow saw daily temperatures hover above 30 degrees, abnormally warm weather not seen in over 120 years. Meanwhile, the Middle East is reporting heat waves 1 month ahead of schedule. The mercury climbed above 50 degrees in at least 4 countries, including Iran, Kuwait, Oman, and the United Arab Emirates in early June. Meteorologists are attributing the region's extreme heat to a so-called heat dome, where high pressure in the atmosphere traps warm air as it rises.
Usually this time of year we're seeing about 15 to 20 degrees cooler than this.
Are looking at the possibility of declaring shortage in the lower basin for the first time ever.
It's always been the heat. It's always been here, and it'll stay around, and either you get used to it or you figure out a way to get through it.
Literally suffered heat exhaustion last year. I actually ended up in the hospital, and I've lived here my whole life. You push it sometimes and it's just, you can't.
It's going to be worse than it was in February because the cool temperatures you can get in your car and kind of warm up and even, put blankets on when it's cold, but when it's hot, what can we do?
How important is it that they get used to this kind of heat before the fire season?
As you can tell, these summers they're not typical anymore.
We all acclimate a little differently. Some people are used to the heat, some people, especially coming from the Bay Area and the coastal line, it's very cold, and so their hot weather out there is about 70 degrees. So it's going to be a big jump.
One of the things I raised, and others raised, I wasn't the only one who raised this at the G7, is that we don't know, we haven't had access to the laboratories to determine whether or not, and I have not reached a conclusion because our intelligence community is not certain yet, whether or not this was a consequence.
There is an enormous amount of evidence that there was a leak from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. There's a pile of evidence 100 feet high.
Do you believe that the virus came from a lab leak from the Wuhan Institute?
I do.
All right, so Mike Pompeo thinks it was from a lab leak, but it's progress with the president because for the longest time, a lot of Democrats poo-pooed the whole idea of the lab leak. Dan Bongino never did. He is the host of the Dan Bongino Show, streaming daily on Fox Nation, and host of Unfiltered with Dan Bongino, a big hit on Saturday nights here on Fox News. Dan, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for that promotion there. I appreciate it. It's been a real joy doing the show.
It's great to have you as a part of the Fox family, of course. So what do you make of this, the way Joe Biden has evolved on the lab leak?
Yeah, I love how they evolved from it was a total conspiracy and you're all wackos to then some mainstream media coverage gets out there where people finally wake up to the fact that this may be real the entire time, and now it's called an evolution. And that's not an evolution. What an evolution, Steve, would be is, hey, we don't have the information yet. Let's make an informed, fact, data point-based decision. That's not what they did. What they said is people like you, me, and others at the network who are open to alternate explanations, they called us wackos and kooks and conspiracy theorists.
They froze your social media accounts.
Lock people out of social media. So, again, to the leftists, let's not pretend that this was some kind of, we were just trying to wait and see. You weren't. And by the way, guys, the evidence was everywhere. I went through it on my Saturday night show on Fox. I went through it piece by piece in a 12-minute monologue. You know, these viruses, guys, they have a code, just like a computer code, made up of bases, cytosine, guanine, these other things. You don't have to be an advanced scientist to figure this out. This double CGG code in the coronavirus and COVID-19, we have not found it in nature anywhere.
No.
Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We have not found it. But you know where we have found it? With lab researchers who insert that code in gain-of-function research to make these viruses superviruses. That is in COVID-19. And you know what's really convenient? The Wuhan lab researcher who got money from the EcoHealth Alliance and the taxpayer omitted that double CGG code in her analysis of the virus so that no one would see it.
Hey, Dan.
I mean, again, the evidence was everywhere.
Dan, what can we do if this is true and it was a lab leak? What do we do to hold China accountable?
We need to expand a Magnitsky-type sanction against Chinese government officials and their regime. It's what we've done against, you know, Russian oligarchs who were involved in the killing of Magnitsky. I mean, you should not be allowed to have you or your kids anywhere in the country if you're part of a communist regime that unleashed this pandemic that killed millions of people. It would stop it right away. They send, guys, you got to remember, they send their kids to college here too. Yeah. That's what's really going to hurt. They have bank accounts here, a lot of these people. Money, follow the money every single time. You want to sting? That would sting big time.